All right. Al, are we ready?
Yeah, still admitting people, but I would say go ahead and start. We are on time as of right now. So, yeah, take it away.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be with us this afternoon, or whatever time it is where you may be. And we have some people joining from on the other side of the pond. So, my name is Scott Benjamin. I oversee sales and marketing for FunSpot Manufacturing, and we're glad that you're here today. So, it's going to take some time and ask some questions and to give you a little bit of background on why we're here and how we got here. When we all started having to work remote, we had to try and figure out a way that we could get together on a regular basis. And so we put together what we call and continue to call a water cooler several weeks ago. Didn't really have a script to guide us, but we've just continued to meet every day, Monday through Friday, and are finding a lot of value in getting together and having a daily touch point. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for our customers, our vendors, other people in adjacent industries to maybe join in on this. And so we've spent the last couple of days really just kind of putting together this idea of a town hall webinar, just being born out of the desire to build some relationships. We really just want to ask questions and listen right now so that we can ensure we're meeting the needs of our customers. Not a real script for how we move forward, but we want to begin and continue a conversation. This is not specifically kind of a COVID-19 or coronavirus or recovery series of meetings or town hall, though we're certainly going to be bent towards that direction in the questions that we ask. But I wanted to start off with sharing a slide that I picked up today off of LinkedIn. I, like many of you, have probably spent more time on LinkedIn and just researching and trying to understand the different things that are going on, not only in our industry, but in the world. And I thought this captured it really well. So I'm going to share my screen. But before I do that, just a couple of housekeeping rules. This is the first time we've done this. This is the first time we've used Zoom to try and do it. So we thought that we would use the chat feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see chat. If you have a question or a thought or a comment, as I put out questions, please use that. You can raise your hand, and then we'll also try and kind of create that dialogue so that we can talk back and forth about some things going on. So just bear with us as we work through this together. So I want to share my screen here. So this is a slide that I found from a group called Trend Hunter. And there were certain trends and things that were happening in our industry, in the world, some of which the COVID-19 situation has accelerated and some have decelerated. But I thought this particular graphic really captured some of the things that we're having to think about in the family entertainment space. And they talk about 6 patterns of opportunity and 18 trends. So from acceleration, cyclicality, redirection, divergence, convergence, and reduction. And so they kind of bear those out a little bit for us to talk about here when we start asking some questions. So just thinking about the idea of what it means to accelerate, really just as we think about our different trade partners, of our FEC operators, our trampoline and adventure park operators, what are the one things that we do really well? How do we catalyze that? And what are the evolving technologies that we use? I especially like this idea of prosumerism versus consumerism. Just understanding that we all have a need to have our voice heard, and we have our guests creating content for our own. So they're being prosumers, not just consumers. There's this whole idea of reduction, where there's specialization, efficiency, subscription models are something that we're starting to see within our industry. And that's done through curation, instant entrepreneurship, and simplicity. This idea of convergence is again something that I think hits our space really strongly, where we're co-creating, we're collaborating, which is something that I see more and more of, even as we have gotten into this town hall today, where we're creating content together and learning from one another in our products and services. Multi-sensation and just hybridization. You think about what a trampoline park several years ago has begun to hybridize into other types of entertainment. There's some interesting cyclicality around the natural component. I think being green is going to be very important. A certain amount of nostalgia and youthfulness. We're becoming more and more playful and defining what we can do when we go out. Here's another one that I think really hits us strongly, and that's the idea of just redirection, where we're building a tribe, and there's plenty out there on the internet and LinkedIn and around kind of what it means to build a tribe and build a brand. This idea of gamification is something we've been talking about for at least a year, and how we integrate gamification into our facilities and creating that experience economy as we go forward. And then lastly, just really the divergence is that we both personalize and we customize, and that there's an authentic social media idea around traditional advertising, just looking for us to be authentic, be who we say we are, and then just that many-to-many power within a given industry, that the relationship between a consumer and a brand. So again, that was just fresh off today that I picked up. We'll be sharing this and a number of other articles and ideas in a follow-up website that we're creating that's just going to be townhall.funspot.com, which we'll have ready for tomorrow when we send out a recap. So there's that. And then I just have a funny video to show, if I can get to it, which I can't right now. So Al, I want to flip it over to you to share your screen. And what I'd like to do now is really just take some time. We've talked to a number of our customers and vendor partners over the last couple of weeks, and we've gathered some questions from them, from our customers, things that we're hearing. And so we want to kind of pose those back to this group and really take some notes, take the position of listening and understanding, so that we can, as a vendor partner, as a supplier, as a manufacturer, come back to you with resources and make sure that we're meeting your need. We know that the world has changed and will be different at some level as we reopen. And so what are the things that we as a manufacturer can do to build the relationships among our vendor partners, our suppliers, and our customers? So that's my information. Feel free to screenshot that. It's got my cell phone number and my email address. I'm happy to connect with you in any way as we go forward. But so this is where it kind of becomes interactive, and we've got 40 participants in here, probably 10 from our team, from the FunSpot team. Like I said, both sales, marketing, and our customer success teams are all here. So based on the interaction that we get from you that are joining us on this town hall, we'll maybe pivot to some of them answering some questions. So start off using the chat feature down at the bottom, and then also you can raise your hand if you'd like, and then we'll start some further dialogue. So go ahead and put up that first question, Al. So this seems to be a pretty obvious question, but we don't want to assume anything. And so the question I want to pose out to us right now is, what are the pressing items on your mind right now? The things that are most important. We're hearing things like, okay, how do we connect to the PPP and get payroll loans? How do we get SBA loans? Things like that. So if you don't mind, take a minute, just chat in and answer that question, and maybe we can get some further dialogue going on that.
Well, this is Jonathan Benjamin speaking.
Hey, JB.
I I can't help but be fascinated with the guitars in Al's background there.
Thank you. Thank you.
It might be a little off topic, but I was just surprised by my wife with the birthday present for a nice Rickenbacker bass.
Oh, nice.
Kind of getting my arms around that in this downtime.
It's great. I accept presents and surprises too, just saying.
So we have quite a number of people that are both owner-operators, investors in trampoline and adventure parks here on the call. We have people that are vendor suppliers from insurance. We have Bethany from IATP here, so great resources available.
We have a question from Trevor Party. If I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, I'm sorry. How do you see park designs changing in the future? Do you see more limited participant activities to reduce social interaction?
I think that's a great question. I'm going to ask Matt to kind of give his thoughts on that.
Hey, everybody. I sure hope not. I mean, I think the beauty of what we've created in our industry is that interaction, and I would hate to see a socially distant park. And so I don't think that's where this is headed. I think additional measures of, possibly taking temperatures when you come into the building or facility, to potentially making sure if you've been sick within the past so many days that you're not allowed to come in, would be some of the additional measures that parks add. It's hard to foreshadow what that's going to be, but I don't think we'll have to go to drastic measures as well as we've handled, as good as we've handled so far with trying to eliminate this virus going forward. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I don't see design or activities changing to extent. I think cleaning measures have to get better. I think, on one of our water coolers this month, we've talked about how many new businesses will be formed out of this pandemic. And one of those certainly will be probably cleaning services. So it may be that every trampoline park has to have a nightly cleaning service come in and disinfect the park. So I think additional measures will be taken, but I don't necessarily see the design or activities changing within these trampoline parks, as long as we can get rid of this virus and take additional steps to ensure the safety of guests.
May I interject one point? Apple and Google are working together to form apps that will help us understand who may have been or who may be has a fever or whatever. They are actually developing together. So that is unprecedented, but today that's a big thing,
Joe is asking what we think in the environment will be once everything opens back up. We're part of the reason we're here is to kind of ask that question and begin to facilitate those questions. So we're taking notes of the questions that you're asking. Our thinking based on what we're seeing is that, we are seeing parks that were in our pipeline moving forward. We're seeing upgrades and retrofits still being requested in our parks. So that to me is all positive and good for what we're thinking. But what I'd like to do is we're capturing these questions and we're going to put them back out so that those who may have a little more pulse on any certain aspect of this can answer it back, and we create this dialogue through our townhall.funspot.com website. I know, Joe, you're considering getting your park up and running, so it's a very important thing to be thinking about and considering.
Scott, Tim Shaw asked, I am a field consultant for an American manufacturer of seating, millwork, and decor. Facility Concepts Incorporated is still working through this pandemic, even though we've scaled down. So I guess that wasn't really
that wasn't really necessarily a question. I guess because I don't know who's all online either. But
That's okay.
the questions, we might need to kind of go, oh, hey, that's the person question. So
This is a community. You're right. Thank you, Tim.
Mhm.
And then we do have another. Let's see. So Trevor Party asked, do you see financing constraints in the U.S. for new parks under development? There are many programs in Canada to support existing businesses to get through this troubling time, but liquidity tightened up for New Start. I mean, basically, do you see any difference going on, any constraints of any sort in the U.S.?
Do you have anyone in the kind of finance area on our call right now that might want to field that? Or someone who has some knowledge around financing?
Hey, this is Joe. I can tell you that for my park, we were right in the middle of the financial process when everything went south with the COVID stuff. And I know our lender asked us to put the loan on hold for a couple weeks. And so that's kind of why we've been kind of in a little bit of a delay. And so we just recently resubmitted everything back into the underwriting process. And so it's back at the underwriter right now. So I'm waiting to hear back as to what their outcome is going to be. The concern I have on that was that, prior to there's two schools of thoughts on this. So the account rep seemed to think that with the SBA money coming in, that it might be a little bit more open up as far as them more willing to lend right now because of all the money that's getting pushed into the SBA, and that it might be an easier time to get financed. The other school of thought on this was it really depends on the underwriting. It's one I have is once you've kind of put your money in as far as like the SBA loan process is they expect a certain amount of capital input is what are they going to be looking at for post-close liquidity? And prior to this, we'd heard different things. Some banks there we had applied through they expected us to have a lot more post-close liquidity. They wanted to see a lot more money in the bank post-open than what I would expected to have seen. And even when I bounced it across our franchise, they were like, wow, that's kind of unheard of. Because some of them were wanting to see $1 million plus in the bank just after post-open in cash. So that was a lot. And considering it was a lot less. And so that my concern is that, with everything being the way it is, that the banks may request and say they want to see more post-close liquidity available in order to do the financing. So we'll see. I can probably have an answer for that probably in the next few days because we're in the middle of the underwriting process right now.
Thanks, Joe. It appears you can unmute yourself, which is fine by me. We're all doing that well. So if you have something you'd like to share, please feel free to unmute yourself. And if more than one do, then I will navigate that. So
yeah, Scott, it's Trevor. Just more information for the group, and especially for anybody that's might be on the call from Canada or from anyone from ITP. Just more for information. But here in Canada, it goes back to the same point there of liquidity constraints and bank financing. Here, I know the gentleman there was speaking that they asked them to resubmit everything within 2 weeks or so. Here in Canada, they're actually actually asking new startups like this to actually wait like a few months before actually going back for financing approval, because they're not even willing to look at anything right now for new startups, because they're at the bottom of the loan totem pole right now. So it's just more of an information piece for everyone.
Okay. And so resourcing information on financing is something that would be helpful, and we do have some great SBA lending contacts that we've worked with before. So we'll get out resources and connections, since that seems to be something important on your mind right now, guys.
Scott, we have a question from Ella Baskerville. Do you see guest demographics changing at parks to cater more to locals? Do you see people traveling as far to see attractions? or to the attractions?
Yeah, Ella, that's a great question that, as owner operators, we've got to begin to really take the pulse. In some bigger metropolitan areas, the trend had already been a lot of parks, so you were much more local. 5-7 years ago, people would drive 2 hours to go to a park. I think it depends on where you're building and what you're doing on how far and wide people will be willing to travel and come. And then, we have yet to see and understand what, local, state, and federal government guidelines will be around how many people are allowed into our parks. So those are all things for us to be thinking about and considering and staying as up to date as possible. If that didn't answer your question, feel free to unmute yourself and clarify.
Nope, that answered it. Thank you.
Ella, where are you located?
I'm in London.
London, okay. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
So we had a couple other questions that we wanted to really pose out there to the group. Not only just kind of what's pressing top of mind, and my notes I'm taking is really how do we move forward with financing is something that is definitely top of mind. And then the next question is, so outside of financing, are there resources that you're looking for that you're having a hard time finding or sourcing? We were able to pivot at some level, a small level, in our manufacturing process and begin to make some masks for some local emergency services and hospitals. So, and I know that was something that was very difficult to find and source. We have that potential opportunity. But what else are you, as you think about reopening, that you're looking for, that you're saying, I just can't find?
Can I chime in here, Scott?
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, Bethany.
That's okay. Hi, Bethany Evans with the IATP. So hopefully everyone's doing all right out there. At the IATP, obviously, we are very concerned about the industry as a whole. We have members in over 35 countries at this point, and we're in the process of developing resources to help you reopen your parks when the time comes. So this particular issue is really critical for us to know what's of value. We're putting together information from from cleaning processes to, new guest expectations to marketing strategies, and you name it. So we're working on getting those resources together for parks now that are members of ours. Additionally, there are resources available on our member-only website. If you're not a member, that's okay. You can still access that information at this juncture, and I'd be glad to give you the information on how to get to that. But anything that anybody actually needs, when you think about reopening, we're going to be offering webinars here in the next week as well that deal with rehiring, retraining your workforce, managing your staff expectations, and retraining your staff, under the conditions of this situation we're all in with the pandemic. I just want to leave it at that and hear what folks have to say. But we will reopen, we will rebuild, we will come back as an industry stronger than we have ever before. And we need to be prepared, and now's the time to really focus on what the needs are.
Yeah, thanks, Bethany. Yeah, so just to reiterate, Bethany is the president of the International Association of Trampoline Parks, and we'll have that information kind of post town hall for you to connect with if that's not an organization that you're currently affiliated with. And as she said, she'll have some ability to access the site free for a certain amount of time, so that you can connect to these resources that are going to be very important. But in the idea of just collaboration, it would be great for us and for Bethany and others to kind of get an idea of what those things are. Like Bethany asked the same. So what are some things that you're needing help sourcing? Feel free to chat or just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question. Go ahead. No? I hear somebody unmuted.
It's just me. I can't believe nobody needs anything. That can't be possible. Everybody's ready to open tomorrow when we get the word.
I'm sure they're making their list.
No, it's extremely overwhelming when you think about every aspect, when you're looking at, from how we sanitize, how we clean, how we have to take diligent care to address common areas, things that folks aren't thinking about, cafe items, not having common goods like ketchup and things available in common areas, your lockers, water fountains. All of these things are things that you need to be thinking about as we start to think about this reopen process. Anything that is common space needs to be reconsidered on how you make that available to your guests. Just for a few items to think about there. It's just going above and beyond in terms of providing not only positive, safe guest experiences, but also now healthy guest experiences.
Yeah. Agreed. And those some of the next, I think the next question, Al, goes to that idea. You mentioned this briefly, Bethany, is, as a manufacturer supplier, we have certain requirements via ASTM for providing training. And, so we've done that for parks that we've built. But now, your teenagers and likely your assistant managers, haven't been working for, 4 or 5 weeks, and, it could be another 4 or 5 weeks before they do open. So would love to hear if you've already thought about, bringing staff back on, how you might retrain them from a court monitor standpoint, safety monitor standpoint, whichever vernacular you use, and how we as a manufacturer could help provide that. And we have our staff trainer, Nate Flock, is on our call. So if you have some thoughts or questions around that, I'd love to have him answer those for you right now.
One thing that Nate had suggested, and Nate might be able to speak to this, is a new position that might help move forward. So Nate, do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I think really it's more than a new position. I think some additional tools are going to help. When I first started training in the industry back in 2012, I worked as a manager for a park back in 2011. And I had no resources. I had no help. It was all, kind of fly by the seat of your pants, this is not the industry to learn by trial and error, right? People's safety is at stake. And so I became very passionate very early because I got really tired of filling out the injury reports. And I think one of the tools that has helped the most, especially in training, I have to say in the last 2 years, I've seen a massive shift with the court attendants or court monitors, whichever term you prefer, when you give them a script. And we see the success in that with companies like Chick-fil-A. And you even look into the psychology behind it. A lot of these teenagers are not even comfortable talking with their parents. So now we're going to have $1 million investment rest on the shoulders of insecure teenagers who haven't been properly trained. And it's absurd that we would spend more time trying to figure out what's on our menu than giving the tools that these teenagers need to keep everyone safe. And so one of those tools being scripts, I've found, because of the psychology of it, they're not using the part of their brain that has to think of how to respond to someone in any kind of scenario. When you give them the response, and it doesn't have to sound scripted when they say it, but when you give them that tool, and I think now more than ever with what we're seeing going on in the world, the new face and the new phase of adventure park industry that we're stepping into, scripts are going to be invaluable. I think every park is going to have to utilize scripts. It gives the court attendant some confidence to stand on. And I really saw the shift on grand openings. When I would come and do trainings right before a softer grand opening, they would be pretty nervous. We would go over the reality like, hey, this isn't a coffee shop. You're representing an industry now. You need to remember, you're not just representing yourself or this park, you're representing an entire industry. So here are some helpful things that court attendants are using and are able to say in different scenarios, so you don't have to think about what is the proper way to respond. You just give them the proper way to respond, and then their brain is not trying to then afford extra time so they can come up with something that's not going to get them in trouble or the park in trouble. Because I mean, we live in times where everybody feels like they're walking on eggshells, right? So the best thing you can do is give them something so they can answer and respond intelligently and in a way that is predictable for the managers. They know what the EAPs are because there's a script for everything like that. So I think, and perfect example of a scripted response, a court attendant is standing at a busy main court or free jump area, open jump area, and they've got, pretty much one per square, the entire main court, and then a dad comes up to them and says, hey, how much does something like this cost to open? And they start asking them questions. And I know these are real questions, not just from the time that I spent managing the park, but I see this constantly over the last 10 years that people will go up to the court attendants because they're the face of the park, right? So having the court attendants be able to respond in a moment like that with a scripted response where they make an initial eye contact with the guest and then look back at the court and say, yes, sir, I'd be happy to answer your question. I just want to let you know I'm not going to be able to make eye contact with you because I have to stay focused on the jumpers to make sure that they're abiding by the safety guidelines. Most of the time, anyone who hears that is going to say, oh yeah, right, you're doing your job, thank you, I'll go ask a cashier or a manager. But that kind of response where you just give them a cue, say, look at the guest in the eyes, make an eye contact, smile, then look back at the court and just say this. When I saw court attendants have a list of scripts on how to respond in certain scenarios, I saw their confidence level go up. I saw their ability to respond faster because they're not trying to think, okay, how am I going to word this to this person that they shouldn't do that? When you just give them those answers. So when we have these new policies, even more so now, we're going to need those scripts. We're going to need to be able to hand teenagers and those in their early 20s the proper communication so that in those moments they can just be friendly. They can just be themselves. They're not trying to focus on what to say. You've already told them what to say. So they can just focus on doing what they're supposed to do. And that's, I think, like I mentioned with Chick-fil-A, my pleasure, ending everything with my pleasure. That's your scripted response to everything. We've seen how well that has fared for that company. So I think with trampoline parks and venture parks, getting as many scripts, not just to court attendants, but to your cashiers as well, because there are going to be those parents that come in and say, how clean is this park? And you don't want the cashier to go, I mean, it's clean. We clean it every day. That's not the response that a mom's going to want to hear. So we want to have an official statement. So be thinking about what are the scripts I can hand to my cashiers? What are the scripts I can hand to my events coordinators who are on the calls with the moms, and the moms want to do it. They're just not sure, is it safe or whatever the fears are going to be on the other side of this, because we don't even know fully the effect of the trauma, the worldwide trauma that we're facing. People are going to take time to heal. And so be thinking about what are those appropriate responses that are short and simple and sweet so that your court attendants, your cashiers, which are around 17, 18, 19 years old, right? They can just focus on smiling and being friendly and being peaceful, releasing peace to your guests with those responses that they've already been given. I hope that helps a little bit.
And we're, as a manufacturer, like I kicked this section off on, we have a responsibility around certain aspects of what we train on our specific equipment. We have, I think, also the opportunity to provide some significant guidance when it comes to cleaning and scripting and things that Nate's talking about. And Jared asked a question, plans to incorporate instruction and safety aspects to staff and guests. And we're working on and very close to putting together a technology platform with a vendor partner that we could put into our customers' hands that gives them video safety training that they have to answer questions on at the end, that is trackable, so that if you have, Billy as a court monitor, he needs to go through the slam dunk, the wipeout, the main court, whatever attractions you have in your park, safety training, take quizzes, and then that's documented. And it all rolls back ultimately to risk management. And I see Tim O'Donnell's on. I can see him because he's on my screen. But I know from an insurance standpoint, those are things that are very important for underwriting. Is that your staff is trained and documented and appropriately staffed on different places within the park. So we are working on that. We'll have that available as an offering on training. So as we reopen, you'll have the opportunity to take advantage of that.
Just one other thing with the training aspect, the IATP has created a court-monitored training program that is currently going to be launched first and foremost in the UK and Europe. It's being tweaked for the US. So if there's UK parks on here, that will be available to you very shortly. But it will give, working with Haas and Wilkerson, our partner here in the States, and then obviously Tower Broker, our partner globally. At any rate, we have created this court monitor online training program that will provide parks with an additional layer of training for their court monitors that is industry wide and not brand specific. So that is another resource that we'll be having available here in the near future.
Awesome, thank you. Tim, since I mentioned you, do you want to take a minute to talk about kind of how safety and training roll into as we reopen and thinking about insurance? I know we didn't pre-set this up, so
it's all right. It's all right. So the thing that came to my mind when I was listening to Nate talk about the importance of the training from a customer service aspect, and it's unbelievably important, but when you train the same way, every time, all the time, whether it be in a customer service answer, how you respond to an incident, how you set guest expectations, that has amazing impact on the front end, the customer service, but it has an amazing impact at the back end come claims time. So the more you've done something every day, the same way, every time, and documented it, the better tools the adjusters are going to have when helping to support you after the claim. It really speaks to making your park more defendable when an incident does happen. If we can prove that this was a fluke, this doesn't happen in our park because we train this way, it really gives them a lot more ammunition than, I don't know where my training documents are, and yeah, we did the class that day, but maybe not the other day. So it can have a really big impact in how things are handled after an incident occurs in your park.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that.
All right. You want to go to the next question?
Sure.
Okay.
And we kind of touched on this a little bit. Did you kind of skipped over the cleaning one? We kind of talked a little bit about that, but I would like to go back to it and see if anyone has any thoughts. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are as to cleaning. I know Tim Shaw, he made a note in the group chat about Santa shields, divider walls, equipment that really helps that idea. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be required to wear face masks or not, but are those kinds of things that you're thinking about? I know early on, 3 weeks ago now, which seems like an eternity, I was getting calls from people wondering, well, we're running out of Clorox wipes when we were still open. What else could we use? So we'd be interested in people's thoughts out there.
I'll go ahead and say that some of the products that we've been designing are, of course, mostly for POS systems and partitions in common seating areas and things like that. Are there any other items that any of the owner-operators have come across that seem specialized that have to do with social distancing and Santa shields, etc.?
It's a great question, Tim, and a question I'll put up on our post town hall for sure, so we can resource that and connect people.
I think one thing we need to look at as we look at Santa shields and plexiglass, like we're seeing at stores now, is at our self kiosks. So many parks have, where you go up and we're going to encourage, contactless entry to parks, doing it online or the self kiosks. So maybe that's something that I'd be interested in hearing feedback on, if the parks are going to look at putting up type of plexiglass between kiosks to provide an extra layer of protection for their guests.
Great. Any other thoughts or questions around cleaning?
All
All
right.
right, and is this the last one now? I think so.
We have, I think, one more question after this.
Yeah, so, really just, again, I kicked this off saying we want to take a position of really listening and then helping to connect you, whether it's through IATP or through some of our vendor partners that are here, to resources. And so, I really just honestly want to ask this question: what can we, as a manufacturer supplier to you that really helps you do your business, what can we do to assist in these times?
I know that some of us have been just talking to one another, and that seems to help quite a bit. Just sometimes it's good just to talk and get stuff out. That's why we really created this Tuesday Town Hall, is so we could all have a place to voice and understand what might be next and things of that nature. So I know that's good for myself being in this industry, just trying to get ideas, talking to other folks. I'm in marketing, so I talk to other folks in this industry in marketing, and just try to figure out how to market this the right way, and how to talk to people the right way, tell stories the right way, sensitively, but still entertaining.
Hey Scott, I got a question for you. This is Grady in Florida. Hey, are you guys seeing any, like, we're doing business as usual for our construction right now. We're really trying to not slow down at all, because if things pan out like we anticipate and hope, we might come out opening right at the end of this situation. With that being said, are there any manufacturing snags that you guys have seen as far as getting the events to the parks based off the set time we initially set up, or are you guys seeing any snags for one thing over another? Or is everything kind of streamlined?
Great question. So, we've had to go remote for our team, which means some of our team that use some of the more heavy powered processing equipment are having to dial into those computers. So there is some slowdown on that side, and obviously we're social distancing in our manufacturing plant, so that also has slowed that down. That said, we are communicating, and anything we have communicated to you and our and orders that are coming in, yes, it is longer than it would have been 6 weeks ago, but it's not significantly longer. Our supply chain seems to be pretty solid. We have vendors in the UK and overseas that are, rather than flying stuff over, they're having to put it on a boat. So that's taking an extra week or two to get over here. But from a significance standpoint, I don't say it's really going to impact you or others at this point. Should this go on longer, obviously we stay communicative, and that's, again, I think if there's anything we can do as a manufacturer to assist is that we just stay open and communicating. I saw a meme early this morning. It wasn't a meme, it was an actual article in the New York Times. It said the number of actual voice calls has gone up, at a straight line, compared to texting. And so there's something that we as people are, we're not physically with one another right now, especially in the work environments. And so, we're at least calling, if not clicking a Zoom link or doing a FaceTime. I mean, I've done more FaceTimes in the past 3 weeks than I did, in the previous, several years. So that's what we want to do. We want to be available, assisting. We want to over communicate. We wanted to do that anyways, but in this time especially, just over communicate and work together. So
I definitely feel like on the coasts where the pandemic is bigger, there's a lot of owners of businesses across the board that are pushing to reopen, even though in some places, of course, the numbers are still rising. So I'm kind of curious to know, since I'm in Indianapolis, we're kind of in the very middle, what the tension is over there with business owners, because they're we manufacture tons of different types of businesses, and some of them are in more high demand than others right now. It's interesting. So I guess I just, in communicating, as you said, it's starting to ramp up people asking about the Santa Shield and the dividers and the precautions for their businesses, whether they're open or not. And some things are just completely on pause until bans are lifted.
Mhm.
Are the Santa shields and dividers that you're referring to, are those things that people are putting in temporarily to help ease everyone back into a normal, or what we used to think was normal?
Correct.
Or is that something they're putting in to keep permanently?
You know, they're removable. I think that there are some businesses, especially gas stations and, things that, clearly are essential, that are going to probably keep them there permanently, just in light of the fact that, this happened. And there are others that will probably remove it once, the virus has been more effectively combated. But yeah, they're either temporary or permanent. I don't see everyone doing that, forever, but currently, to keep the wheels turning, I feel like it's been one of those things that people have had to step up and grab for their business.
Cool. Thanks, Grady and Tim. Appreciate that.
Scott, we had a question from, and if I pronounce his name wrong, I'm sorry, Yanni Koenig.
Yeah.
Given the VR attractions requires contact with the face using the headsets, do you feel that you will continue to use VR, or does it represent greater barrier now? And if so, are familiar with any protection products or processes? It feels like we were just talking about those that would be that would rebuild your confidence in the whole VR attraction.
Is there anybody on the call right now that has any sort of virtual reality in their adventure park? Nope. He only has a VR product, and so it'd be important for him to know that. And I'll link to his question as well in our follow-up. Okay. Do we have one more?
Yeah. Here you go.
Yeah. So last thing I want to kind of wrap up with was marketing. What are you doing to market, your parks, or what is that a resource or some help that you could use? Al's been we've been co-hosting this together now, so he's our marketing guy, and we have some resources and some other also vendor partners that operate in that marketing space. And the video I wanted to play earlier was a COO who had asked his team to just send interesting videos for working at home, and one of his GMs put on his uniform and sat out in front of his home and basically was telling his neighbors and blowing his whistle at his neighbors as if he were a court monitor. And then his dog came in and was wanting to get on the wipeout, and so he was instructing him how properly to get on the wipeout. So just a funny way of saying, hey, we're still here. We may be socially distant, but we're thinking about how we can open strong with training and safety. So lots of creative stuff out there, but would be interested to hear from some of our owner operators that are looking towards reopening, what they're currently doing around marketing that we could learn from possibly. Anyone have anything fun and exciting that they've done?
Hey, Scott, I'd be happy to share some of the things that I've obviously been monitoring this from the 30,000-foot viewpoint. So just some really cool things that I feel are really awesome to maybe look into social media-wise right now is one, engaging your staff wherever you can. Keep your team members engaged, be it through TikTok or other videos that you can use them in terms of connecting them to your park and your client base. That's always something really awesome. Also, shout outs and public support for the community, our healthcare workers and essential employees, anything that connects you with your community. So connecting with your employees, connecting with the community. The IATP just did a social media blast out today on 4 easy ways you can help support local trampoline parks, be it through social media, sharing and liking posts, reviews, buying gift cards at this juncture, and also sharing your photos from when you were at trampoline parks and tagging the parks in those photos. So just keeping the momentum going. So I do really think it's really important to connect that keep that human connection alive between the park owner and the business operator and your employees, and then also the community. I think those are the two greatest things you can do right now.
Thanks, Bethany.
It's a really great. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hey, yeah, I saw something really cool that I wanted to share. I know one of our parks, pretty local to where our manufacturing facility is in Georgia, knew they were going to have some food go to waste, and so made that food available to the community for drive-by pickup. And I thought that was really cool. Really kind of to echo what Bethany said, created that community touch. It said to the community, hey, we're thinking about you. We're still here. We want to be open and serving you, but this is the situation we're in, but we want to provide back as much as we can. So I thought that was a really cool thing that they did to stay connected to the community during this time. So I would encourage you guys, if you're operating now, to look at doing something like that. Everybody loves a kind of a social cause, and I think that was a very worthy one that turned out really well for him. So yeah, good.
I also think a few things that I've noticed people doing, and I'm wanting to do myself, you got to think about it. You're an entertainment facility where people bring their kids and their families to really get the energy out and to entertain them so that they're tired for a nap later. I know that's a fun thing to say, but we got to keep that in mind. So why not do a live stream on your Facebook page? Because you already have that connection with people, and maybe play a game with them, invite people to it a couple days in advance. Do something every day. Maybe have a scavenger hunt, indoor scavenger hunt at somebody, have a list of things that people need to find at their house, not super specific, something pink, something smaller than an eraser, stuff like that. Just there's a list online you can download. Just entertain people because you've got a lot of people stuck at home trying to homeschool their children, and they need that outlet. So if you are that outlet, they're going to trust you that much more when it is time to reopen your doors. So they are going to have that intimate relationship with you. They're going to understand that they have a connection with you now, and you're more like a friend than just the park owner that they may have never met, but they've been to your park a dozen or so times. So I think if you can come up with ideas like that, in which, hey, feel free to email me. I'm willing to go back and forth with ideas with folks because I love things like that. So I think if we play games with people, I've even tried to get our team to challenge some of you guys in a Family Feud online. So I think that would be fun. But I think that Scott says it every day, we have to take care of our mental health. And I think that it would be not only good for your customers, but it would also be good for you, the park owner, to see some smiling faces on Zoom and other aspects of the internet that you might be able to stream through. So just take advantage of the time to connect with your audience a different way than you usually do. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, Tim O'Donnell.
On that topic, I've been on a couple of other similar calls like this, a lot more in the traditional family entertainment side. And I had heard people talking about an idea of using the attractions and the elements of your park to put out educational content for kids. And if you're able to teach, if you've got video games and you want to talk to them about the technology, about how they work, or different things like that, they've been getting some decent responses from parents. They're more apt to let their kids sit and talk to the trampoline park if the trampoline park is teaching them about the physics of the jumping or whatever.
Great idea. I think a STEM educational class right now would be perfect for kids at home to keep them attached to the trampoline park. So,
and I have a connection with a STEM trampoline curriculum, so I'll post that on our town hall follow-up. Really good stuff around force and motion and gravity and simple machines. So all those things which we have within our trampoline parks and adventure parks. So that's great. Well, listen, we're coming up on an hour. I appreciate your time. A couple of things I'd like to ask of you before people start to pop out. Because I don't know everybody who's on this call, if you would just take a minute in the chat box and just put your your name and your company or your park name, just a little bit of information about you. That's just so we know who was here. We will post some of the questions, some of the content. We've recorded this, so it'll be available for us to go back and use. And then our plan is to set another one next Tuesday. That's a town hall, and we'll invite 1 or 2 people to really facilitate our time together, so you'll know a topic or 2 that we'll be discussing. We are working on the ability for breakout sessions and things like that. And as I said, there's no script for us on how we go forward, but one of my philosophies is that it's easier to steer a moving car than a parked one. So we just wanted to get moving, and we'll begin to steer as we move forward. And again, keep the dialogue open, keep the relationships moving forward. I think there's a slide, one more slide that just gives my information, maybe, Al.
Yeah, I can go back here to it. No problem. There you go. And we will put this in the email, the follow-up email tomorrow. So we'll have all of the information that you will possibly need to contact or to find our new website for the town hall sent in an email tomorrow morning. And you'll be able to see a recording of this as soon as we put it up. You'll have full access. So we're really excited about this.
Yeah. So we've had about 10 people from our team, again, sales, marketing, and our customer success teams. So I want to thank them for helping us get to this point. Appreciate our team. Again, we're here to support you. I won't have all the answers to the questions you have, but we have a great team around that will be able to do so. So if our team could just stay on here for just a minute afterwards as people start to drop off. Again, if you just put your name and your company or location in the chat, so we can capture that. I'd appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great afternoon or evening, depending on where you are today.
Yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. We really do appreciate it, and we had a great time.